Hello, my name is Tara Brabazon and I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to vlog 161. Loneliness. So clearly we're moving from our Joy Division New Order suite into the full Pet Shop Boys. Bless. So this is our single word vlog series that continues. It will stop at some point, but not while we have a great request like loneliness. And this request comes from John. Hi John, he's a wonderful correspondent with me, and John is in a very special individual space. He is a gay man, he's also an international student, and he talks to me a great deal about the specificity of that. And his request of me, loneliness, I think is a powerful one. I again would never have thought of this one, and as I went into the literature, there is an academic literature on it for academics, and so I was using blogs, I was using some refereed literature, but also the care packages that are available for universities around the world. So let's work with loneliness as an issue, as a problem, as a topic. And as you can see, I'm doing this from my house very, very early in the morning on a public holiday. So it adds a bit of juice, a bit of energy, a bit of ambience to our discussion of, yes, loneliness. So research is showing, this is the general literature outside of academic research, this research is demonstrating that 1 in 3 adults suffer from loneliness. 1 in 3. Why that's important is that loneliness can cascade into a series of other wider social problems like anxiety, like depression, and indeed it is linked with the age of your death. So this is a very serious, very quiet, very sad area, I think. Also, if a person is lonely, stress levels increase, and the capacity to manage those day-to-day vagaries of what our life is about, the day-to-day stuff that happens, that capacity starts to decline. There are lots of definitions of loneliness, but the one I found the most moving and the most interesting, I think, came from the NCBI. And they defined loneliness as a discrepancy between the number and quality of relationships you would like to have and the number and the quality of the relationships you actually have. Isn't that powerful? I've been thinking with that for the last week or so. Incredibly powerful definition, that. And there's lots of strategies, proxies if you will, to enact to try and lessen loneliness. So there is instructions to, if you do these 3 things, that's a way to mitigate loneliness. And those 3 things are increasing the number of people that you talk with every day. That's a really important one. So on the street, say hi. At the university, say hi. At the shops, say hi. Just increase the number of personal interactions you have every single day. So that's the first one. The second one is actively working on social skills. So doing a MOOC on social skills, trying to improve your communication and social interactions. Great idea. And 3, this was a fascinating one, learning to compliment other people. So moving through life, appreciating the gifts that other people bring to you and bring to the planet. I think that's a fascinating one too, because it's getting you out of yourself and looking at somebody else and appreciating other people. I think that's great. But the number 1 strategy from the research in managing loneliness is to ask the person, and it's a big one, to change the way in which they view and understand the world. Hashtag no pressure. But what that maxim is suggesting is loneliness is based on a lack or a series of problems or issues or blockages, and they involve trust. So that's why the worldview has to change. To mitigate and manage loneliness, we must trust other people. We have to believe in other people and believe in the goodness within other people. Certainly I do that, but I understand it's very challenging in our contemporary age to do that when most of us on a daily basis meet somebody that's just horrendous and would hurt us actively if they can. So you understand why people are lonely and why people lack trust. But I still think we should try to enact that trust in the world. So that's the general literature and recommendations for the general population about how to mitigate and manage loneliness. And there's some great strategies there. But academic life and academics are rather different, and there is a specific literature that addresses loneliness and the academic workplace. And I did particularly want to focus on the specificity of you as PhD students and academics, because I think we undermine and underestimate the radical specificity and distinctiveness of academic life. We are incredibly unusual. We do an incredibly unusual job. Let me prove it to you. What makes our stuff so unusual? Well, we spend our days in the workplace doing things that frighten the rest of the population. So most weeks, and in my case, most days, we speak in public. So we stand up and we speak in public on a matter or an issue. Now, that's what we do. That's our daily practice. And yet when surveys are conducted in the general population, what's the one thing that really frightens you? The answer is invariably, you've guessed it, public speaking. So we do something that the rest of the population is terrified of. Fascinating. But also we experiment, but we also read and write for a living. You know, we read for a living. Incredibly unusual, because a recent survey showed that 70% of US adults haven't read a book in the last 5 years. Now, I pretty well read a book daily. I certainly read many books weekly. This is what I do. That's part of our work. And also we write. We write articles, we write conference papers, we write books, we write book chapters. So writing is part of our daily life. And there are very, very few jobs where we write as part of the job. So you can see the argument I'm making here. We have an incredibly unusual series of tasks that make up academic life. And a lot of those tasks, so reading, writing, thinking, we think for a living, they're isolated tasks. And indeed, they're isolating tasks. We talk a lot in academic life about collaboration. And yes, collaboration is wonderful and it does exist and it's provocative and glorious. But I think it can be over-egged, because I think we forget that collaboration is based on thinking. And thinking is a solitary act. It's also an act of great courage, I think, because it activates what I describe as an interior life. For all the conferences, the lab work, the field trips, it seems I know people are sort of everywhere engaged and engaging with us. But really, all of that is based on a single premise, that academic life, the thinking life, the scholarly life, is an isolated life. Now, I love that. That's why I do it. I love the quiet, as you can pick up. The passionate ideas that emerge from reading the best scholars in the world, from transcending the best ideas in the world, to sit and nestle in ideas and try and interpret them in an innovative way, the play of ideas, the play of language, the play of vocabulary. It's incredibly exciting. And I've never been lonely in my entire academic life, including my PhD. And I've never actually been lonely in the rest of my life outside of academic life. And I think that's because I've always been drawn to the quiet energy that comes from research. I do love the quiet. And in fact, I think I was drawn to research as a very young person because I did want to live in my head for a while and sort of get away from all the people around me. And that's why I get up early like this. So that's why it's appropriate. I thought, you know, it's 3:30 in the morning. Hell, let's record a vlog. And it is important, I think, that quiet interiority is part of these mornings. I get up because you can hear the quiet. You can hear the peace. There's not a soul awake except me. And in this quiet space, it's so much easier to activate the play of ideas. Teaching is boisterous and sweaty and fabulous, and I adore teaching, and it's big and it's bold and it occupies space, and I love it. But I think why I love research too is it's the counterpoint to that sweaty beauty of teaching. But for the PhD students creating ideas, I understand there reaches a point in your candidature, particularly in the final year, where the specialism becomes so special that there's really nobody else you can discuss it with. And I really understand that, and that is true. And Giulio Peroncelli used a great maxim that I've sort of had in my head for the last couple of weeks. He stated, quote, "You were born alone, you do a PhD alone, you die alone." End of quote. So wow, yes, as you've picked up, a PhD is, for all the collaboration staff, it is independent research. But when does that independence and that originality become loneliness? And there is no doubt a PhD is immersive. It's really, really hard work. And it does require sacrifice. Time away from family and time away from friends. So for our international students in particular, hi John, hi all our international students, I particularly understand the situation you're in. Because you arrive in a country not knowing a single person, and you have to in many ways start your life again, and that can be incredibly isolating. I probably understand that more than most Australian academics. Most Australian academics were born here, did their qualifications here, stayed working in Australian universities. I didn't. On multiple occasions, on my own, I arrived in a new country and had to start working the next day, not knowing a soul. And I've done that time and time again. So I really understand you, and I understand the courage it takes every single day to wake up and put one foot in front of the other and just start to build a life. I understand that. But I think it is also important to remind yourself about the pleasures of research, the privileges involved in doing a PhD. And in the second half of the vlog, I'm just going to provide some quick suggestions for you today to mitigate and manage that loneliness. But also remember, if you are feeling lost, talk to me as the Dean or my equivalent for my colleagues around the world or the graduate office. Because if you find yourself cascading into anxiety and depression, come and see us early, because there's all sorts of professional packages and support that is available for us to simply book and put you into those support programs to care for you, okay? On your own terms, in your own way, but don't suffer alone. Share it, and we can configure a package of care for you. And the other point that I wanted to make, and this was a great study, so this was a study from 2005 of graduate students, and it found that sociotropy, who knew this was a thing, sociotropy, was particularly a characteristic of graduate students. Now let me do the symptoms of this, shall I? See if you recognize yourself here. The excessive need for interpersonal acceptance, the excessive need for interpersonal nurturing, alongside perfectionism and fear of academic failure. Now, I know a lot of you students out there, and I recognised those 4 characteristics when I read them in the research. I went, oh, that's, so you know who I'm talking to. And so therefore those 4 characteristics come together to create the social isolation and the depression that we are seeing in PhD students. So we need to get you to the point where you no longer require the validation of others, that you don't need other people to tell you how good you are. You are confident. You are centered. You're not living your life to gain the approval of others. Probably if this vlog series has stood for anything, it is that courage and independence of thought, that you don't need the validation of others to create who you are. So do not hope that somebody will care for your PhD. You care for your PhD, and frankly, that is all that matters. So don't give away your sense of satisfaction, don't give away your sense of power to the approval of other people, because you'll be waiting a long time. We live in really ruthless times. Control what you can control, put your work into sizable chunks, and feel great about yourself when you complete those sizable chunks. So what I'm going to do now is offer 5 quick solutions that you can start to implement today to provide the pathways out of loneliness for you. And these are bespoke doctoral strategies that are used in care packages around the world. So solutions. 1. If your supervisor has a group of students, so the supervisor, a group of students, cluster all the meetings on one morning or one day. Right, now most PhD supervisors have more than one student. So use that reality to create that shared experience, that family, a place, a group of people that you can complain about your supervisor to, if nothing else. And if those meetings with your supervisor are placed on the same day, then it means every single week you get to see the other people in the PhD cohort, okay? And coffees and conversations can be shared, and that peer learning is absolutely crucial, I would argue. So through my supervisory career, and at one point, the peak, I was supervising 18 students at a time. I'm actually nearly at that point again, but 18 students at a time. And I see students to this day, actually, in 30-minute increments. So I run meetings weekly, but at 30-minute intervals. And I do that for many reasons. And I'm about to give you my secret. My students, yes, it's efficient for me, and I see a student, it's quite exhausting too, but I see him every 30 minutes. But the reason why I decided to do that is that so the students would meet each other during that time, so that they'd only have to wait 30 minutes and somebody would go and have a cup of coffee with them. And what would endlessly happen, particularly at Murdoch University, I had all my former students at Murdoch, where we had the big cohort, is basically they would grab a table at the coffee shop, my students, and as students would come and go to the meetings, they'd leave the coffee morning and they'd return to the coffee morning, and they would talk about their ideas. So what actually started as they're here to see their supervisor became basically a postgraduate seminar once a week for 4 hours. Now, obviously, if you're working in a lab or in a clinical environment, you've got people everywhere, so this is not your issue. In fact, we've often got the other problem in labs. 2 or 3 of the PhD students over time start to hate each other because they see each other so much. So that's a whole series of other issues. But if you are coming in for your meeting and your supervisor is basically the only person you're seeing each week to talk about your work, then you know what? Talk to your supervisor about the placement of meetings. So when you see your supervisor, if nothing else, you're having that conversation. Remember my early stuff about how to manage loneliness? You're having a conversation with a few other people, saying hi to them, complimenting them, finding out about their life, getting out of yourself, and talking about the PhD. Important. 2, the importance of venting. Right. Now, where can you vent about your PhD? And of course, venting about your PhD is one way to manage loneliness. Can I say, though, your supervisor will grow incredibly tired of your complaints. I have had students that have come to meetings for 2 years and done nothing else during those meetings except complain. And wow, it gets tiring. And can I say, your partner, your kids, your parents, if all they hear is complaints from you for 2 years, they're going to get a bit tired too. So I have a solution. This is why you use online fora to share your experiences about the doctoral candidature. So for example, on Twitter, #PhDchat is a great way to meet people. And there's an array of Facebook groups in particular. I mean, we're talking thousands of Facebook groups on method, on methodology, on discipline, on country, on age, on any sociological variable you can consider. And I just like to do a really big shout out on Facebook to the wonderful group, the Owls, Older, Wiser Learners, a wonderful group of over 40 PhD, over 40 as in age, not number, there's thousands, over 40 PhD students that get together and talk about their experiences. And the success of that group in getting students through is remarkable. And lots of students have a vent and people talk them off the ledge. and they go again. So that's an important group, I think. So this online environment, this online PhD community is ideal to provide that day-to-day support. And I should also do a shout out to our wonderful group, The Right Bunch. That's our writing community that meet via Skype once a week on Friday mornings at 10 a.m. So we all write together, including me. We all write together for 30 minutes a week, and then we get together for the 10-15 minutes afterwards and talk about how everyone's going and what they're writing and the good and bad things that have happened during the week. Now, even I've been surprised by that. It was just an invention for me because I wanted our regional students and our international students to have an opportunity to be with someone in the program once a week. And the success, we've had so many students graduate through it. People have sort of found lifelong friends through The Right Bunch, people that would never have met. So there's all sorts of online writing groups out there, and actually analog writing groups as well. Meeting in a coffee shop, shut up and write. There are shut up and write groups in most capital cities around the world these days. If there's not one, form one. And if you want to create these online writing chances, I think the Owls have one. So those of you that are over 40 and would like to join the Owls I think have a weekly writing group as well. So again, that creates the community. You're not on your own. 3, be the change that you want to see. I'll say that again. Be the change that you want to see. So my last point was about venting. But let's be honest here. Nobody likes people who grumble bum all the time. Yes, you can have a bit of a complaint. Yes, you can have a bit of a whinge. But you know those people that just, every sentence that comes out of their mouth, they're whinging. And you just sort of switch off a bit, yeah? Bit of a problem. So why not make a decision to be positive? Why not make a decision to realise the privilege that you have to do a PhD? Make a decision to appreciate the love of research. And it's amazing how your conversations with people will change when you derive it from that mindset. We can learn from anyone. I want to say that again. We should learn from everyone. We must learn from everyone. And there's something incredibly important about transcending the people that you're used to dealing with and listening and learning, meeting all sorts of a diversity of people and listening to them and understanding their lives and learning from them. Now, doing a PhD is powerful and it is precious. And when I say precious, I really mean it. Only 1% of the Australian population has a PhD. 1% of the Australian population has a PhD. So obviously, if you're wandering through life waiting to speak to somebody with a PhD, you're going to be waiting a very, very long time. Very few people have any understanding of what a PhD is about. Remember the 1%. So, people will not understand what a PhD is about. But that doesn't mean you can't talk with them and listen and learn from them. Because you are not your PhD. You are so much more than your PhD. So broaden out your opportunities. Talk with a diversity of people on a daily basis. Listen, learn, think about differences and learn from those differences. There are millions, nay, billions of brilliant people out there who never went to a university and certainly never entered a PhD program. Brilliant people that we can learn from in a deep and clear way. They are intelligent, they are passionate, and they have something to teach every single one of us. So don't isolate yourself because, nobody understands my PhD. Build new topics, new relationships, new issues that you care about. Build those bridges. So that gives your PhD new contexts, and that's incredibly important. So don't isolate yourself to students in your own discipline either. Most universities, including our own, have a whole series of social events. And we do that for PhD students so that you get out of the lab. you get out of the library and you meet a diversity of students. And I don't want to be all idealistic on it, but hell, I suppose this is what my life's been based on, really. The whole point of a university, the whole point of the gig, is that bright people come together and talk and create transcendent ideas. That's the project of a university. So if you're only talking with people in your discipline using your methods, you're not transcendent. Meet all sorts of people, from the hard sciences to the high humanities. We can learn from anybody. Change the lens on your research, and you might indeed change the lens on your life. 4, blog or journal. So depending on your level of public comfort, journaling or blogging, both of them are incredibly useful. And the reason why, firstly, the research shows that the students that reflect on the process of doing a PhD are the most likely to finish. So I'll say that again. The students who reflect on the process of doing a PhD are the ones that are most likely to finish. So both blogging and journaling enable that reflection. So you understand the process in greater depth and in a different context. Now, because blogging is public, it's a way to meet people. So you can present your views, your reflection on what you're going through, and either gain comments to it in a natural blogged situation, or indeed triangulate it through Twitter and Facebook and meet new people and have new commentaries in that way. Remember, it's called social media. Remember the adjective, it's social. So use it in that way. 5. Find a new activity that is completely separate from your PhD. I have some personal experience in this. So I started to go to the gym on a daily basis when I started my PhD. So I linked my starting of the PhD with going to the gym every single day, and I've gone every day since 1993. So even though it's a public holiday today, after I've recorded this vlog, I'll go upstairs, start the editing process, do a couple of jobs, and the gym's opening a bit later today because it's a public holiday, but I will be there when it opens. Okay, so I love it, and I love it for many reasons. I don't go, oh, I have to go to the gym. I love going to the gym. It is the highlight of my day. Why? Because it's involving movement. I have a very sedentary job. I sit on my clacker a lot. And so the movement I enjoy very, very much. It keeps the body occupied. And look, I also do work every morning. So I'm on the treadmill for an hour a day. And I learn these talks while I'm on the treadmill. So again, that's a very productive use of time. I could just be sitting on my clacker learning the talk, but I'm walking on the treadmill, doing something active while I'm learning them. But most importantly, the reason I decided in 1993 to start going to the gym on a daily basis is I wanted to meet different types of people, because university communities are weird. They're really weird. They're selfish, they're self-absorbed, there are some bullying cultures, and there are people that are so self-absorbed and self-interested that they would flick you as soon as talk to you. This is a ruthless, ruthless institution sometimes. So I've always thought, and maybe it comes from my wonderful father, Big Kev, but I've always thought it's important that every single one of us mixes with a diversity of people. No one is better or greater than anybody else. If you breathe, you have rights. And there's something very important about us transcending the university. The university is not the world, and making sure our engagements show that the university is not the world. So every day I make sure, even though I've got this incredibly immersive job, that I am speaking with and engaging with deeply non-university people. And what that does is it provides a different context, a different lens on your life and also on your PhD. So find an activity, a club, an organisation that is of interest to you, and be a part of that and enjoy it and create a different way of thinking and looking at your life. So get out of yourself, get out of your research for at least a little bit every day. Okay, so as you can see, social media has mattered quite a bit to the vlog this week, because you can select the degree of contact and the degree of comfort that you wish to enable here. So I'll give you a great example. On Twitter, there's a fantastic group of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender and intersex STEM researchers that get together, a wonderful group of people on Twitter. And so a very specialist group that deploys the deterritorializing aspects of social media, but come together and support each other. And that is just tremendous. And also use Facebook to engage with people in lots of different ways, the whole person, their family, their friends, their life. And I think the gift of social media is an important one, but you have to be disciplined. You can do your work, you can work your 10-hour day, you can work your 15-hour day, and then say, you know what, for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to go on, it could be at 2 a.m. in the morning, right? So you've worked incredibly hard. No one you know else is awake, but you go onto social media and you've got friends that might be in Montreal, that might be in London who are awake, and you can use that 30 minutes to have that series of social relationships on your terms, on the time that suits you. So please remember, for your old dean, doing a PhD is a remarkable act, remarkable. Half the students that start a PhD don't finish it. That's a horrifying, horrifying statistic. But it gets worse because there's been studies done of the students that finish and the students that leave the program, and they're of equal intellectual ability. I think it's very easy for universities to justify the attrition rate by saying, oh look, the people that didn't finish, they weren't good enough, they weren't bright enough. Actually, the studies show the people that finish and the people that leave on the way through are equally intellectually able. I think about that a lot. And therefore I think what we learned from that statistic is the stories that we tell ourselves are incredibly important. The dialogues that you have in your own mind with yourself are incredibly important. Enjoy the singularity of the experience of a doctorate. Enjoy that quiet interiority of academic life, but also exercise, walk, go to the shops, go visit the botanical gardens and smell the flowers. I did that a couple of weeks ago, and you know what? It was lovely. Add meaning to your life. Add different contexts to your life by changing the frame, the lens. Meet new people on a daily basis. Because you know what? The world is a really interesting place. So be courageous. Meet new people. Listen to them. And learn from them. And you'll start to see the value of being alone in a way that does not cascade into loneliness. Much love to you, John. I wish you all love, light and peace. And yes, I'm off to the gym.